Alright, hi guys. Welcome. So today I want to talk about a topic that has been bothering me for the longest time since my competition. So I have a few friends and a customer that came forward to me and told me that they try to use the recipe that I used at my world stage and apply on the coffee that they have. And it doesn't seem to work. And why is that so? Which is why I decided to talk about why my winning recipe will not work for you. First thing first that I want to cover, which is the environment. I just give you an example where the recipe that I have at Nationals and that I use at Worlds is completely different. So here's the number that we have. Does that work? So one good big reason is actually because of the humidity and the weather. So it depends on where you are at, which part of the world you are at, and that will actually heavily influence how you will actually have to approach the coffee. One example I like to talk about, which is the grind size. I was using 20 clicks at my Nationals and 32 clicks at Worlds, which is actually very huge, especially when it's on a Comandante. And what it actually helps is because of the bitterness of the coffee itself. When you're grinding at a much humid environment, the grind size is not as brittle as what you'll get in a dry weather. So talking about the bitterness of coffee, there's a few ways that you actually can check. So I like to do this especially when I come across a coffee that I have not brewed before, or like I have completely no clue, I didn't cup it or anything. So what I like to do is I like to take a coffee bean and I'll boil it. It's very similar to like when you come across a cracker. How easy is it to break them into pieces? Or it's very hard to break them into pieces. So this will help me determine what grind size should I start with. Should I use something more fine or should I go coarser than usual? So what we did was when we were in Melbourne and when we are in Singapore, we did exactly how we would do to determine the grind size. Okay, let me finish my chewing fast. Oh yeah, one good tip is actually this gives you a base profile of roughly how this coffee would taste like as well. So after you determine the grind size, that will actually influence your flow rate and many other parts of your brewing recipe. Which is why I think how you should approach your coffee should never be by just following a recipe strictly. The fun comes in when you are able to tweak and adjust as accordingly to your preference as well as to your environment. So the good contrast we have in Singapore, our humidity is between 50 plus to 60 plus, sometimes 70 depending on what's around. And when we were in Melbourne, it was 20, 30. The huge contrast actually determined how we would approach the grind size. Which brings me to my next point. Because we are grinding at such a coarse grind size when we were in Worlds, we were using 32 clicks and the water ppm we used was actually 180 ppm. It's a lot higher to compare to what we have in our national, which is only just 70 ppm. So the fun part about coffee, I believe, is always about knowing each variable and you're able to adjust as accordingly. And here comes also the ratio. When we were in Melbourne, the ratio we used was 1:15. Using the same amount of coffee that we had, 15 grams, but I was only getting up to 240 grams of water as compared to national was 250 grams. But because ratio actually influence your final aftertaste. For example, let's do a small experiment. I'll be having two different coffees. One coffee is from Fried Hats, one of my favorite roaster in the world. This coffee is from Ethiopia, the Sugi Kuto. Right, the profile is very citrus-like, lemon and lime, elderflower, creamy. It's a wash Ethiopia. And the other coffee we have here is from La Cabra. This coffee is from Honduras. It's a honey process, a Paranamia varietal, tastes fruity and balanced. So two different coffees from two different roasters. Let's try to apply the same recipe that we used in Melbourne and see how the coffee tastes like. Let's see how it goes. Same thing, 15 grams. Ooh, this is much easier to work. And do you know what that is? So this perhaps really gave me a clue to know that I have to use a different grind size for this two coffee, and how easy is it to grind and how hard it is. That actually tells me that how brittle the coffee is as well. Okay, I've already finished brewing the coffee. So I guess the next step what we can do is we can invite a guest to taste the coffee with us. You just tell me the coffee nice or not nice. This is my winning recipe at the Worlds. Okay, we'll use a cupping spoon to assess the best slurping that you can.
Wow.
Okay, can you share your thoughts?
I think the coffee feels very light, and also at the same time, I think the flavors feels very muted. Yeah, feels under extracted.
Don't worry, my slurping sound is very okay. Wow, the coffee here actually tastes a bit salty. So now I'm gonna calibrate the coffee. So here's what I'm gonna do. Okay, because I want to work on the body, right? The first thing first I will change is the grind size. I'll use a much finer grind size. By increasing the surface area, it actually allows me to extract more coffee oil, and this would help to improve and push for a slightly heavier body. I'll still stick to 15 grams. I will also increase the temperature because I see that there's actually lemon and lime in the tasting note. I will use probably, instead of 91, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use 93 degrees throughout my brew. So these would help to highlight the acidity. Okay, the total drawdown time is about 30 seconds more than the last one. Wait, I'm not asking you to rinse your mouth, eh?
So I think the coffee got a lot sweeter. The notes are more pronounced, and it's a lot sweeter as well, like a lot. So this doesn't taste like the coffee water, it tastes like coffee in the water. No, just tastes like coffee. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, most of them.
He's trying to be a very humorous person. Everything becomes more pronounced. It's more intensified. It becomes more, it's not that the one before is not palatable, but this is actually more enjoyable. And because we actually increase the body, the coffee becomes a lot more structured as well. It holds the acidity, and the coffee doesn't crash even if it were to cool. There you go. So you can't just use one recipe and apply on all different coffees under a different environment, perhaps. It always starts from somewhere, and we make adjustment along the way based on the understanding that you have for each variable. So another thing that I want to talk about today is why we shouldn't use whatever that you see at a comms routine, a competition routine, or the recipe and apply directly. This is because we are very restricted by time, and in my case was I only had 10 minutes and I have so much things that we actually do at the backstage. Not that we do not want to share, but we are very restricted by time. So I give you one good example. Did you know which filter paper did I use? And did you know that different filter paper will actually influence the overall flow rate and the amount of coffee oil that will be extracted into your cup? I was using a Capac TH3 filter paper because actually it's more porous. It actually allows me to get more coffee oil. You know that I was using Aquacoat. Aquacoat is a water that, a mineral sachet that only contains magnesium and calcium. If only one recipe works for every single coffee, I think coffee will be so boring and we won't be doing coffee anymore. So yes, thank you guys.